I'm a family doctor who, by virtue of my work, has been working in the community, taking care of seniors across the life course, from very well all the way to extremely disabled with advanced dementia and dying on their deathbed. And I've seen some of them passing on and took care of them. And we started a program to take care of people dying. But still, I'm humbled before this particular topic. But I'd like to share with you, the intention is hopefully it could be useful for some of you, maybe some point in your life. So what I've structured this talk is just some table desktop research on some of the evidence so far about the definitions of good death. And then I will use what I know as a geriatric practitioner, a gerontologist of some sort, dealing with health and aging, to sort of project about how a good death could be. And then sharing with you my reflections about dying well, and then 11 themes. And this is a summary of what they found. So the first column are the articles related to patients' opinion. What are the definitions of good death? And then the second column are the opinions of the family members. The third one are those of the healthcare workers. So I've highlighted in terms of ranking. So if you look at the patient's perspective, preference for dying process is top. And coincidentally, it is also shared with the family members. Family members also believe that the preference being dignified, being honored is also the most important. And this also goes the same for the healthcare workers. Almost 100% agrees to this. And being pain-free is also a very important component of good death. All three agree, ranked number 2. And the third part is, so for the patients themselves, religiosity and spirituality is ranked 3rd. Whereas for the family members, they don't think very much of it. They don't think it's so important. But this is 11. All are important, it's just ranking. So if it's not important, you won't even show up in this list. So religiosity and spirituality, to the family members and the healthcare workers, they don't perceive that as particularly important. But to a person who is dying, it is ranked number 3. And emotional well-being, all of them consistently rank high, emotional well-being. Then life completion, the family members and the person who is dying think that having completed all your affairs and duties is important as a component of good death. So I will just digest what is found, and this is my own thoughts, that terminally ill persons, the families and the healthcare providers all agree that good death should be in accordance to the dying person's preferences regarding the dying process. And it should be pain-free, right? And they also feel that good death should be emotionally well. So there's agreement here. However, religiosity and spirituality rank high in the terminally ill, but to the family and the healthcare provider is not so high comparatively. But what is interesting here, dying in accordance to the process, the dying process according to your preference, being pain-free, emotionally well. When this is taking place, is this person dead or still alive? Alive. So actually, this is about dying process, good dying process, not exactly good death, isn't it? I mean, this is my question. It's like when you do a survey or questions like this, although you want to define good death, what you're actually defining is actually a good dying process. In the discussion of health, as medical doctor, we are supposedly trained in healthcare, but actually what we are trained in is pathogenesis and the study of diseases, and how do we manage and treat and mitigate the risk that diseases pose to health. This is a sociologist. He did a lot of qualitative interviews among survivors of Nazi concentration camps, and it intrigued him to find that about 30%, nearly 30% of women who survive such traumatic event as World War II in Nazi Germany, were to still have emotional well-being compared with control group, which is people without going through those periods, is 50%. So 30% compared with 50%, these people went through such trauma. And so it sort of made him ask this question, surely there must be a reason. Why do some people stay healthy despite the stress, while some do not? And that the circumstances can be so challenging, but some people can stay so healthy. So he came up with this concept called salutogenesis. While medical science finds the causation of diseases, there must be a way to understand what causes health. It's not the absence of diseases, which is what World Health Organization also recognizes. It is not merely the absence of diseases. Health is health. Disease is disease. It's different. Generalized resistant resources is very interesting. Generalized resistance resources are all the resources we have. In a way, when we talk about gratitude, we're counting our blessings. So these include, for example, if you still have money in the bank, so you have got this resource. If you don't have any chronic illnesses or other disabilities, the health is a resource. Your family members, your social support is a resource. So once there's a gap in the resource, you can actually experience stressors, and then you can feel a state of tension. And when the resistance resources is low, the tension is very strong. And then if you manage it successfully, it increases a sense of coherence. There's a certain comprehensibility, manageability, and it's meaningful because you come out stronger. So now, the last part, I just want to digest everything and share with you my reflections. Definitely from the evidence, it shows that advanced care planning, knowing the preferences of people, and excellent palliative care so that a person is pain-free is very important for good death. But where does living end and where does dying start? Most people, when they talk about good death, they're really talking about good dying, you know. And good death definition, halfway through the preparation of this conference, I call up Ng in a text, and also Yue Peng, that I want to put quotations around good death. Why? Because I feel good death is an unnecessary burden. What if I don't die a good death? What would people think of me? Or if I'm a caregiver to my father, and my father don't seem to die a good death according to the definition, how can I rest in peace? So I don't think, good death is anything we can even understand. I would just want to say that it is a double-edged sword, because by aiming for good death, at least it ensures caregivers like us, we do our best so that the dying process is as peaceful as possible. The person's preferences is understood. So it is good to set a standard of care. But when a person is dying, no matter how they die, even if they have a car accident or something, we don't know whether is it good or bad. That's what I'm really trying to say. Does good death matter? That's another important question. If it matters, why does it matter? According to Dame Cicely Saunders, is that if you witness a good death, the caregivers will feel confident about their own aging. But to the person who died, why does it matter? It really depends on this. It is a subjective and dependent on culture and beliefs. It depends on whether you believe in the afterlife or not. If you don't believe in afterlife, good death doesn't matter to you. Whether your family members believe that, whether they okay. So because good death is about good dying is about good aging is about good living, right? So mindfulness, role of mindfulness in good living and good dying is that you lead a healthier lifestyle. You moderate in your eating. And then when you pick up a cigarette, you think, do I need this? No. You have better sleep. Sleep is important for your health, physical health and mental health. You avoid accidents. You're more careful. You respect work. Work is our best, I don't know, maybe not for some of you, financial investment, right? Financial prudence, you're careful, you don't overspend. And then you have harmonious relationships. And you're actually exercising good mental habits, okay, of contentment, acceptance, kindness, open-heartedness, gratitude, balance. These are all associated with mindfulness. If you practice mindfulness regularly, as if the muscles of your mind in these areas get strengthened. And that pause allows that moment of clarity. It invites critical thinking, curiosity, and it's useful for life of perpetual learning and growth. So I suppose if a person has this habit of learning, like the first man I mentioned, when he's lying down there, everybody's busying, he's like being inserted in nasogastric tube, it can be very painful, but he's like, oh, this is interesting. Perhaps, okay? And if one is so powerful in mindfulness, you might be able to observe pain and suffering when suffering has got two components, right? There's a pain, and it's the meaning you put to it that make you scared, worried, and depressed or guilty and everything. So with mindful confrontation of pain, there's pain, but you don't need that, what it means and worry and so on. You don't need those. So it's just suffering without the sufferer. And lastly, with the practice of mindfulness and clarity, perhaps we can grow the sense of coherence that Antonovsky talked about, that sort of support a survivor of concentration camp despite the unspeakable trauma that they go through. So these are my conclusions. Number one, surely a good death is peaceful, contented, forgiving, trusting, and has some sense of coherence. And surely it is related to how one lives one's life. Surely it is related to how the mind is like at the last moment of life. Surely regular and frequent mindfulness practice helps habituating mind states of resilience, especially needed in times of stress, such as when one is facing death and dying. And as a bystander, how can anyone tell whether a mind of a dying person is good one or not, a good death or not at the very last moment? So with that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.